Alright, so I finally got my hands on the EMAX CineHawk. This is one that a lot of people had questions about because a bunch of other reviewers had their video out a long time ago, and they're wondering, where's my video? I typically send out my videos the same time that other EMAX products come out, but for whatever reason, I guess EMAX had some trouble acquiring enough O3 air units for this build at, during the initial review phase, and was not able to send one out to me. So they did finally get a bunch of these in stock, and these are now available, generally widely available at most places. You know, EMAX USA, Banggood, I think Race Day Quads carries it now, etc. It's a little bit different, kind of Cinewhoop, 3.5-inch props, but this is not going to be for those of you guys that want to carry a GoPro around. So one of the nice things about these bigger 3.5-inch Cinewhoops is they are able to carry more weight, more battery, and the heavier GoPros. Sometimes those 3-inch Cinewhoops, they struggle to sort of carry the larger GoPros like the Hero 10 and the Hero 11, the full-size ones. But this one is not intended for those guys. So if you're wondering if this will carry a GoPro, out of the box it does not. It's intended for getting 4K footage from the O3 air unit. That is what is its intended design. Now, I suppose there's probably already some 3D printed mounts here you can put on top, because this whole thing is dampened here. So they dampened the camera with the O3 air unit in this sort of whole cage system here, and they have these rubber balls here. And they have extra pieces of these in the box if you're wondering, spares in case it pops off. But basically, the idea with these Cinewhoops is you want your 4K camera to be stable, or not stabilized, to be vibration isolated, so that any vibrations that come from the motors and props through the frame are isolated from the camera, so you don't get jello. So in the testing that I did, you'll see in the footage later, there's no jello whatsoever. So this is a very nice system here in terms of isolating the vibrations from the quad to the camera. And I did test this without any ND filters in bright sunlight, and you'll see that I'm able to fly around pretty aggressively in wind without any jello. And this is some very good vibration isolation here. And they kind of went with this sort of like setup here. Instead of having the air unit inside the quad, like you would typically see, like it would usually probably go in like this little area here, like the old Vistas did, or your analog video transmitters. In this build, it's just basically landing feet to land the quad. So they put this here. That's just to add a little more mass to the camera here, so that any wind or whatever isn't going to cause us to shake. And these are some pretty good dampeners. I mean, you can see they're solid, they're not flimsy. And in a crash, hard to say. I think that's why you have a lot of spares here. These little parts here, these might break in a really hard crash, but they do include some spares in the box. So I like this idea of this whole like kind of modular system here with the air unit with the camera together with the antenna. What I would have liked to have seen, and this is something I did suggest to them after they sent this, they showed the design to me a long time ago, and I thought that they would implement this in maybe this design, but maybe it'll come in a later design, is actually having this thing modular in the sense that it can be removed, including the dampening plates, so that you could have maybe another plate underneath this one where the dampening plates, there's like say 2 dampening plates with the rubber grommets, and then you attach the bottom dampening plate, or the bottom plate to the quad, and then of course there's a plug there. You can just then maybe unplug this and move it to another type of quad. So for example, maybe if you want to take this O3 air unit and move it over to like a 4-inch or 5-inch, that would be pretty cool. And then you only have to invest in a single O3 air unit, and then you just use a little plug it into the flight controller in your other quad. So I'm hoping that they, or maybe other people will take up that idea and come up with a modular quad where you can move this around. I know there's some 3D printed parts where I've seen where they can attach it as like a GoPro camera on a GoPro mount, but then like, it looks really clunky. I would like to see quads actually designed for this in mind. I think it's going to also make the quads lighter as well, but we'll see. I think that's kind of the first step here, because the O3 unit is probably the largest cost item here in terms of the whole quad, because this thing is only running about $489, and then the O3 air unit is about half the cost of that. It's like $230 just for the O3 air unit, and there's not much discount even to OEMs, the manufacturers of these quads. So half of the cost of the quad is in the O3 unit. If they can make a modular system where you can move this from quad to quad, Cinewhoop to a 5-inch freestyle, or maybe a 7-inch long range, and have this to be designed to be moved around, and so it'll be on a part of the quad where it could just basically snap into place. You plug in the cable, and then you're off and running. Something to know about the way this one is set up here. This one here is the Express LRS version. So there is a Express LRS receiver here. For the firmware on here is version 2 firmware for whatever reason. So you'll have to update that to version 3 if you do get this version. And if you get the Express LRS version like I have here, you're only going to get 4 wires going from the air unit to the flight controller, the 2 wires for the S-bus connection for the receiver part are disconnected and not wired up. So you have to get a new cable if you want to switch it over to if you want to use the DJI control, the remote controller 2. You'll have to do that and rewire it. So if you get the plug-and-play version, it'll get wired for the DJI remote controller 2, and then you can fly with that, because then they'll use the built-in receiver on the O3 air unit. So the motors on here are 2004, 3000 kV, using the Avon 3.5-inch props. Pretty good setup here in terms of using a 4S battery. Pretty good power. I think that because it's not carrying around a GoPro, you are able to do more acro tricks and stuff like that. I did fly it around with the 4S 850 here, and you could probably go a little bit larger if you want to get more flight time. You get roughly 6 minutes on this battery. If you are flying a little bit more cinematically and maybe out not in so much wind, maybe you can squeeze out a little bit more flight time out of this one. I didn't really drain it all the way down. I think I drained it out to like 3.7 volts. So you could probably go maybe 7 minutes on this one. But you can probably stick a little bit bigger battery in here, maybe like a 1000 milliamp hour force or 1100 milliamp hour force, and then, probably get close to 10 minutes on this flight setup here. So if you're looking for something with a lot more flight time, these, bigger ones with the 3.5-inch props are going to give you that extra flight time and performance. And if you're not carrying around a GoPro, you're going to be able to get that 4K footage and, maybe a little bit more acro types of flights. So another thing that's kind of different of this one versus a lot of other 3.5-inch Cinewhoops is if you see the frame here, it's a lot longer front to back versus side to side. So the side to side here is typical for a lot of 3.5-inch Cinewhoops, like the Cinelog 35 or the ones from Axis Flying. There's a bunch of them. They're all kind of basically an X-shaped frame where the side to side, front to back is the same. And in this particular case here, it's about a little over 90 millimeters side to side, and then the front to back is much longer. So if you do the front to back, it is like 120 millimeters front to back. So you can see the distance here between the props versus no distance between the props this way versus this way. And what that does, surprisingly, makes it more stable in the pitch axis, and because the motors are more spread apart front to back, the pitch axis, which I think is the more important axis for cinematic flying, is a little bit more stable, and you're able to get more control in terms of maintaining that pitch direction, the pitch angle, and it's a little bit easier to do that with this one versus the Cinelog 35 or some of the other ones like that. And of course, the tune out of the box was good. EMAX has tuned this from the factory, and I believe this is on 431, not 441 or 442. It's possible they may upgrade that later, but that is the current tune that they're shipping as of June 2023, or towards the end of June 2023. It's on 431. So if you need some of the features of 4.4, like the high definition OSD, for example, you'll have to upgrade that to 4.4. and probably will want to contact EMAX support regarding what will need to be done for that. The flight controller here is, your typical 25 by 25 whoop style flight controller, F411 is the chipset, and it only has 2 UARTs. So if you're looking for F7 or something with a lot of UARTs so you can do GPS, this is not the one for you. And it has your standard micro USB connection there for your beta flight, and it is fairly easy to get to. You do need like a sort of a smaller cable to get in there, but it is able to get in there without too much issue. And you can see here the battery is sitting on the, it's going to sit in the back here. That's where the strap is, and that's to balance out the weight of the O3 air unit. So that's why it's like this. So if you put a really heavy battery on here, you're going to want to move it as far forward as possible so that you don't cause the CG to go to the back. So I did try putting a 4S lithium ion battery on here and moved it all the way forward, and the CG was very tail heavy. So I wouldn't recommend going to something that heavy. You're probably going to get like 15 minutes of flight time, but it's going to cause the back motors to probably work a lot more than they need to. I'm not sure how hot they're going to get. I didn't test that. But yeah, you can probably fit a 4S lithium ion pack on here, but I wouldn't recommend it just for the CG problems, and just it'll fly kind of funky, and probably wasn't tuned for that either. So yeah, I would go, I'd probably at the most a 4S 1300 LiPo. I think that is about the most I would go. And then of course I couldn't find any, I didn't have any batteries that big with an XT30. That's the connector that's on here. So if you have any larger batteries you'll need, they're typically going to come with an XT60 connector. You'll need an adapter to plug it into here to fly with those really big batteries. Alright, so here's how much it weighs. It is 239.8 grams, no battery. And I throw on that Forest 850 that I flew with, and now we're over 326.5 grams. So definitely well over the 250 gram limit. All right, so a few notes on the default settings out of the box. I fly everything straight out of the box, just because, most people, they don't want to change any settings. They just want to just fly it. And what the camera settings on the O3 air unit come in normal color, not Cine-like, and it's 16 by 9 with electronic image stabilization turned off. So if you want to stabilize it, you do need to run it through GyroFlow, and it's very, very easy to do. You just drag and drop the files, and then basically hit export, and you have a nice stabilized file. So those are the default settings. I would recommend, if you want to get slightly better vertical field of view, switch it from 16 by 9 to 4 by 3 mode. And if you want a little bit nicer image quality, not as much sharpness, turn on Cine-like, which has lower sharpness, but then you'll have to do color grading yourself. But if you just want, straight out of the camera, just pretty decent image quality, it's okay. But I think that Cine-like is a little bit better than normal color. Now, as you noticed here, there's this 3D printed part here to protect the lens, which is going to be fine, for most people that don't use ND filters. But if you want to, lock in your shutter speed and get, basically better footage overall, you're going to want to take this off. I did not take this off for the review because I just basically review it the way it comes. Shouldn't be that hard to take this piece off. Unfortunately, it's not one of those where you just kind of slides on and off. You'll have to remove the camera, so you'll have to unscrew it on both sides, one here and one over here. Take those screws out, pull the camera out, and I believe this TPU part wraps around the back side of the camera. So you're going to want to basically pull them apart and then pull it off. Because if you leave this on here, you're not going to be able to use any ND filters. So I got these new Camera Butter ND filters. Was hoping to use them with this guy. By the way, these are pretty nice. So this one here is the ND8. So there's a 4, 8, 16, and 32, and then you get a UV filter for this set here, the 5 filter set. And then you can also just buy the UV filters by themselves in a 2-pack. Basically, UV is just clear, and you can use this as lens protection instead if you want. So just buying a bunch of these UVs, I would say take off, if you want to use ND filters, take off this TPU part and then use the UV if you are not using the ND filter, say for like low light situations, to protect that lens. You definitely want to protect that lens. But yeah, as I was saying, with this TPU part on here, you cannot get these ND filters to lock in because they notch into the plastic on the O3 area, but the TPU part here on the side prevents that from locking in. So you do have to remove that if you want to be able to use these ND filters. So just a quick look at what these look like. I'll have this in another video when I probably the Pavo Pico update that I'm going to be doing eventually. But this is a pretty nice filtered Gorilla Glass, high quality glass. And yeah, if you've used camera butter filters before, highly recommend these. These are pretty good filters. Yeah, so overall, pretty impressed with the CineHawk here from EMAX. I think that if you are leaning towards just getting your footage from the O3 area and not having to deal with a GoPro, but you want something in the 3.5-inch class with a lot more acro ability, because this is lighter and has this big 2004 motors, you are going to get some pretty nice acro ability in this Cinewhoop. But it's going to be sort of like an all, if you're looking for something that kind of does a little bit of everything, a little bit of freestyle, Cinewhoop flying, that kind of thing, and very good performance. If you're only looking to buy one quad and you're just, you don't care about getting GoPro footage, you're happy with O3 air unit footage, then yeah, this is one to definitely consider. Yeah, it would have been nice to have an F7 flight controller, just because if you are using this as like an all-in-one for everything, having a GPS on here for like, those longer flights, further away flights would be nice, but not a deal breaker, because I think most people are not going to be using this for a long range. And I do like the fact that the camera vibration isolation here is probably, out of everything that's out there right now in this class, this is the best setup I've seen so far in terms of the video you get out of the O3 air unit without any jello and without any ND filter and bright sunlight. So overall, pretty impressed with the performance of this. Links down in the video description if you guys want to check this out. That'll do it for this video. Talk to you guys in the next one.